Welcome. This tale is not one of kings or armies, but of a life older than cities and deeper than the memory held in stone. It's about a time when the earth was the ceiling and the walls, and fire was a beating heart in the deepest night. A time when days were measured by the sun's threads, and all worries distilled into a single question: how do we live until tomorrow? Imagine yourself waking up where cold stone meets the scent of old smoke, in a cave hidden amongst the hills, far from the hustle of any time you know. No clock wakes you, only the shifting light on the cave walls and the steady drip of water touching the earth. You open your eyes to a darkness that isn't absolute, but mingled with a faint glow coming from the heart of the fire that was never allowed to fully die out the night before. The embers glow quietly, sending strands of heat crawling toward your limbs, as if the cave is breathing slowly. The air is cold, yet infused with the scent of damp, slow-burning wood, mixed with the flavor of ancient ash. Behind you, you hear the breath of the sleepers, a steady rhythm as if the entire group shares one heart. Nearby, a soft sound of a water drop descending from the cave roof to fall into a small hollow carved by time. You move cautiously so as not to wake the person beside you. Your bed is nothing more than carefully tanned hides, smooth in some places and rough in others, beneath which the rocky floor retains its nocturnal chill. You reach out to the fire, turning a small piece of wood, and tiny sparks scatter, rising only to vanish into the air. Before you, the shadow of your hands dances on the wall, driven by the ember's glow. You pause a moment, watching the lines shift on the rock, then take a deep breath of the slow morning air. This is the sound of life here: breaths, water drops, and a fire that glows. Far off, at the cave's mouth, a thin line of light appears, like a silver thread splitting the darkness. Birds begin to sing from afar, their calls reaching you as a gentle reminder that day is coming. You know it's time to move, but without haste. Here, morning does not begin with a sharp ring, it seeps in like a visitor who knows their way. You reach for a small pouch woven from plant fibers, searching for a piece of dried meat, yesterday's remainder. The taste is salty and tough, but it instills a sense of continuation. You know that maintaining your strength is critical, for today, like every day, is a challenge between you and nature. As you watch the embers, you think of your first task this morning: keeping the fire alive, for the entire group's heart depends on it. The fire is not just warmth, it is the community's memory and the reason for its survival. Every glowing ember holds hours of vigil and protection, and any neglect could make the night much harsher. You move closer, carefully picking up a small piece of charcoal and nestling it between two new pieces of wood you gathered yesterday. You choose the wood with an expert eye, not green branches that would smother the flame, nor brittle dry wood that burns out quickly, but the kind with a medium hardness, which releases steady heat and leaves long-lasting embers. From the corner of the cave comes a sound of faint footsteps. It is Isla, the woman who has known the secrets of fire since she was a child. She carries a small bundle of thin pine branches that release a sharp, resinous aroma. She offers you a brief, knowing smile, then sits down beside you. She begins arranging the branches in a small pyramid, tucking between them pieces of dry bark that fell from dead trees. She takes a sharpened stone and strikes it against another, sending a small spark onto the bark. A thread of smoke appears first, then the fire slowly begins to blossom, like an orange flower in the heart of the gray morning. You watch her push air into it with her mouth, short, calculated puffs, until the fire catches its breath and becomes self-sustaining. You sit for a moment in silence, listening to the wood crackle and the scent of smoke mingling with the pine. This smell, you know, will cling to the cave walls until the next rainy season. In another corner, some of the men begin to sharpen their stone tools, preparing to leave. The young children are stirring in their sleeping places, curling deeper into the warm hides as if trying to steal a few extra minutes before the day calls upon them. Isla rises and places a few larger pieces of wood on the flame, then turns to you, saying in a low voice, "The fire only betrays those who neglect it." Her words carry more than advice, they are an unwritten law known to everyone who lives here. You realize that fire is not just a tool, but a bond between you and those who came before you and those who will come after. It is something like the heart, if it stops, the whole body dies. When you lift your head from the fire and look around the cave, you discover that every corner holds a deliberate arrangement, as if the place itself were organized to an ancient rhythm. To the far right, near the inner wall, small families sleep. There, the bedding consists of layers of animal hides placed over a bed of dry grass that prevents moisture from reaching the bodies. Above the hides are light linings of soft fur, carefully collected from winter hunts. In the center is an open area, more like a walkway, allowing movement between the fire and the cave entrance. This is also the gathering place when the group collects around the flame at night. This space is clear of any obstacles. Even the children know not to place anything here, because movement must be swift in case of a quick departure. To the left, near the cave entrance, sleep the men who take turns on the nightly guard. Their bedding is thinner, they are accustomed to the cold, but they have a direct view of the outside so they can notice any movement in the dark or hear unfamiliar sounds. You notice that everyone keeps their few belongings close, a stone tool, a small knife, a plant fiber pouch containing dried food or personal items. There is no ownership in the later sense, but there is a respect for the place of everything, and an awareness that losing a tool might mean losing a chance for survival. Even the young children know their places precisely. When night falls, no one needs to tell them where to sleep, the earth itself remembers the lines of their bodies and draws them back each evening. There are also designated storage areas, small cavities in the wall filled with bundles of dried herbs and bags of bark containing dried seeds or berries. Everything here has a purpose, and every space is utilized to its fullest extent. As you walk toward the entrance, a cold draft of air hits you, carrying the scent of the damp forest. From here, you see the daylight widening, and the sounds outside become clearer, the tapping of birds on tree bark and the rustle of leaves moved by the wind. You realize that these moments of silence before leaving the cave are part of an unspoken routine, where everyone prepares in their own way to face a new day in a world that doesn't give much. As the light at the cave entrance widens, the morning rhythm begins to accelerate, not hastily, but with a quiet steadiness. Some of the women head toward the embers, placing on them flat stones that have been heating all night. On these stones, thin slices of dried meat are placed to regain some of their softness, or small pieces of preserved roots to warm them. Food at this time is not a feast, but fuel for the body, a piece of salty meat, a handful of dried berries, and perhaps a warm drink of herbs steeped in rainwater, its smell slightly sharp but warming the throat and chest. The young ones sit in a small circle, sharing what they are given, while the older ones eat quickly and quietly, preparing to leave. The sounds of chewing mingle with the clatter of stone tools, as some mend a spearhead or resharpen a knife. You eat your food while thinking of the distance you might walk today, and the possibilities of what you will or won't find in this world. Every meal might be the last you get for many hours, perhaps even a whole day, so not a single crumb is wasted. When you finish, you wash your hands in a small stone bowl filled with cold water brought from the nearby stream. The water restores alertness to your skin and reminds you of the coldness of the river you might cross later today. The meal is not just food, it is also a moment for planning. Beside the fire, the hunters and gatherers exchange brief words, setting the path, mentioning locations where animal tracks were spotted or where rare plants appeared. Here, survival is not a decision or a feat, but a daily reality. You know which plant heals and which sickens, which track on the ground means prey, and which scent in the air warns you of a nearby predator. And before the group moves out, you look toward the fire again. You see the embers still glowing, watched over by Isla's eye, so that life in the heart of the cave remains vibrant until everyone returns with the setting sun. The air outside is cooler, but it is saturated with the scent of life, the smell of moss wet with dew, soft earth beneath your feet, and a breeze that carries the flavor of wet pine needles. You pause at the entrance for a moment, letting your eyes adjust to the light after half a day spent in the familiar darkness of the cave. The group moves slowly, but with measured steps. The hunters carry their spears and tools, and the gatherers place woven baskets on their backs, lined with soft herbs so as not to damage the plants they will collect. Everyone knows their role, and no one leaves their post empty. Before you descend to the plain, the leader raises a hand, signaling a halt. He looks around, testing the morning silence. Silence in this world is not an emptiness, but a delicate tapestry of sounds, the buzz of a distant insect, the sudden change in the whistle of a bird, or the rustle of leaves not moved by the wind. All these signs are read as one reads words on a page. You descend together into the dirt path leading to the ancient forest. The ground here is still damp from yesterday's rain, and a layer of clinging mud sticks to the soles of your feet. The sound of footsteps on the mud is like slow, repeated heartbeats, part of an ancient ritual. Dangers outside are not always obvious, sometimes they come in the form of a predator silently tracking you, and sometimes in a poisonous plant with attractive leaves. There is also the risk of getting lost, for the forest can swallow anyone who strays from the path without a trace. This is why everyone stays close, following the steps of the leader or a seasoned gatherer who knows the locations of water and useful plants. Their communication is sparse in words, but rich in signals, a light nod, a hand gesture, or even a sudden stop that means something is worthy of attention. Every step toward the outside is a reminder that the cave, with all its darkness and coldness, is not a prison, but a fortress. You enter beneath a dense canopy of branches, where the light gradually softens until it turns a dark shade of green. Sun rays slip through in thin threads, dancing with the movement of the leaves, as if the forest itself is weaving changing patterns on the soft floor covered with a layer of decaying leaves that release a deep scent, a mixture of ancient wood and dampness. With every step, you hear a faint rustle, and sometimes the crack of a small twig breaking underfoot. In the world of the hunt, this sound can be an announcement of your presence to those you don't want to see, so you move cautiously, lightening the pressure on the ground and choosing your foot placements carefully. From time to time, a quick movement flashes before you, a squirrel leaping from one trunk to another, or a bird suddenly flapping its wings to get away from you. High above, among the tall branches, you hear the sounds of birds. You never see them, but you know them by the timbre of their calls. The leader raises his hand and everyone stops. He kneels slightly and touches the ground, then points to a faint track in the mud, the print of an old hoof, perhaps from a deer that passed here hours ago. The path is not changed for it, today is not a hunting day, but the information is filed away in the memory. In the ancient forest, everything looks static from a distance, but it is full of subtle movement, drops of water slowly descending from large leaves, an ant carrying a leaf 10 times bigger than its body, a spider's thread shining in a sunbeam before disappearing into the shadow. The temperature here is moderate, but the humidity clings to the skin, making you feel the air is heavier than it is at the cave entrance. Sometimes your nose catches sudden floral scents that quickly vanish, as if the forest is granting you fleeting glimpses of its secrets. You are now deeper inside, where only fragments of daylight reach, and where the distance between you and the cave is no longer measured by steps, but by the increasing feeling that you are a guest in a land you do not own. The group stops in a small clearing where light penetrates the forest roof, granting the spot of earth temporary warmth. Here, trained eyes begin the meticulous search. Not everything that grows is edible, and not everything that is edible is always safe. Liara, the eldest of the gatherers, bends down toward a low plant with long, thin leaves. She gently touches the tip of the leaf, then brings it to her nose. After a moment, she shakes her head and moves to another plant. She has a small knife with a wide edge that she uses to cut the stems gently so as not to damage the roots. You learn from her that knowledge of plants is not just memorizing shapes, but knowing their scent, their texture, and even the taste of a small leaf chewed on the tongue. She points you toward a light green herb, saying that its leaves treat burns and its roots are boiled to make a drink that soothes stomach aches. One of the boys finds a plant with purple petals, and he runs towards it happily, but Liara stops him before he can touch it. In a quiet but firm voice, she explains that this plant, despite its beauty, is poisonous, and can only be eaten if prepared in a specific way. This knowledge, which likely came from generations past, is what prevents a simple mistake from becoming a tragedy. The selected plants are placed in baskets lined with broad leaves that keep them from wilting. And each time the basket is filled a little, she arranges its contents carefully so as not to break the stems or wilt the leaves. While working, eyes remain vigilant and ears listen for any change in the surrounding sounds, for even in moments of engagement, no one forgets that the forest may hide unseen things within its shadows. When the first baskets are full, the team gathers in a short circle. They inspect what they have collected and exchange a few words about other locations that might hold rare plants. This is not just a gathering trip, but a live lesson in survival, its lines written in memory, not on paper. The journey toward the wild beehive begins through a narrow passage lined with dense shrubs. The air here is heavy with the scent of wild flowers, as if you are approaching the pulsing heart of the forest, filled with nectar. The leader signals for everyone to be quiet, for the bees do not like disturbance. Tureen, the most experienced in this matter, walks in front. In his hand is a long branch ending in a bundle of dry herbs that he will light later to release smoke that calms the bees. His steps are slow, but he knows exactly where to place his feet, avoiding branches that might make noise or impede progress. After a short distance, you spot the hive, a cavity in the trunk of an old tree, its entrance dark from the wings that have passed over it hundreds of times. Bees go in and out in a continuous line, like a small, flying path of gold. Before approaching, Tureen lights the tip of the herbs and a cloud of white, woody-scented smoke rises. He stands at a calculated distance and directs the smoke toward the entrance of the hive. The bees, which were moving quickly, begin to slow down, their sounds becoming less sharp. With a flat stone tool, he reaches inside cautiously, taking out a honeycomb filled with honey that slowly drips onto his fingers. The color is deep gold, and the scent is sweet, almost overpowering all the other scents of the forest. He transfers the comb to a basket lined with large leaves so that nothing is lost. The process is repeated only a few times, for the group knows that taking too much could harm the bees, and they need the hive to remain strong for the coming years. After finishing, the team retreats slowly, leaving the bees to return to their work as if nothing happened but a brief visit from strangers who know the value of friendship with nature. And as you walk away, your hands still carry the scent of smoke and honey, a mixture that perfectly reflects the meaning of survival here, a truce between necessity and caution. As you continue walking after the rest, Dini walks alongside you. He is a middle-aged man, broad-shouldered with hands that bear the mark of many years of work, but his eyes shine with wisdom deeper than his muscles. He is known among the group for his ability to treat wounds and illnesses, and for knowing the forest as well as the lines on his palm. He leans toward a small plant with leaves opposite each other on the stem. He picks a leaf and folds it between his fingers until a pungent scent emerges. He explains to you that this leaf is crushed and placed on wounds to prevent rot, and it is also boiled to treat fever. He shows you how he tests the plant, smell, touch, and sometimes a cautious taste. Along the way, he stops at other plants, some you know before and others you see only now. An herb with tiny yellow flowers, he says, is used to soothe the stomach, and another with broad leaves is used as a natural compress. Each time, he recounts how he learned to use it from the generation before him and from long observations over successive seasons. You notice that Dini does not collect much of each type, only what is necessary. He repeats more than once that nature is not plundered, but treated as a generous neighbor from whom you take what you need and leave what allows it to continue its life. While explaining, he picks up a small piece of dry bark from his pocket and breaks it between his fingers, releasing a deep aroma. He says this is burned to repel insects on summer nights. He smiles as he places it in your hand, as if granting you a small key to the place's secrets. With every step, you realize that the knowledge he carries is not just a trick for survival, but a complex web of relationships between humans, plants, and animals, woven over generations and inseparable from the life of the group itself. As you walk through a narrow passage lined with oak trees, the leader suddenly stops. He raises his hand and points forward. There, a few dozens of steps away, stands a massive elk. Its branched antlers gleam with threads of sun leaking through the leaves. No one moves. The elk is watching you, too, its ears moving left and right, weighing curiosity against caution. Its breath rises in the damp forest air like small clouds slowly dissipating. In the group, the elk holds a special place. It is not just prey, but a symbol of strength and resilience in the harsh winter. Its antlers, which renew every year, leave a mark of renewal and life after loss. The leader signals to the hunters to lower their spears. Today is not a day for hunting, and the group is already loaded with sufficient resources. In the shared silence, there is a kind of respect, as if the encounter itself is a gift from the forest. You remember the tales told around the fire in the cave about a hunter who followed an elk for long days until he was nearly exhausted, but the elk eventually led him to a stream he hadn't known, so the hunter was saved and returned to his group. Such stories make the animal more than just flesh and bone, but a partner in life. After moments, the elk takes a slow step, then another, before disappearing into the trees with a silence that belies its size, as if the forest has swallowed it, leaving behind a brief echo in memory. The group moves again, but you feel that everyone kept something of that encounter in their heart, something that cannot be measured by weight or stored in a basket. As the sun approaches the edge of the forest, the light becomes warmer and turns gold. Shadows stretch across the ground, and the sounds of birds change as if announcing the approaching end of the day. The steps are slower now, not only from fatigue, but because the baskets on their backs are heavier than they were in the morning. The baskets contain a mixture of everything you gathered: fresh leaves with a sharp scent, thick roots covered with a layer of mud, partially dried bundles of herbs, and pieces of honeycomb protected by broad leaves. Each item tells a part of today's journey. Dini walks in the middle, reviewing the contents of the baskets with his eyes, making sure the most delicate plants are well protected. Liara carries her basket as if embracing a child, careful not to pile the plants on top of each other. The hunters walk lightly, their hands free in case of any surprise on the way. The road to the cave seems shorter than it was in the morning, perhaps because the thought of reaching the warmth of the fire and the scent of smoke makes the steps quicker. At the first glimpse of the cave entrance, the group is overcome by a familiar sense of security, as if the massive stones surrounding the entrance are open arms waiting for them. The children who stayed in the cave run out to meet them, their curiosity prompting them to reach out to the baskets to inspect what was brought back. Some smile at the sight of the honey, and others hold up a plant between their fingers to ask its name. Inside the cave, the sorting process begins immediately. Medicinal herbs are placed in a shady, dry spot. Edible plants are prepared for cooking or drying. And honey is stored in small stone pots. Outside the cave, the sun continues its slow descent, but inside, the light of the fire is growing stronger, signaling the beginning of another chapter in the group's day. With the approach of evening, the atmosphere in the cave changes. A cold breeze slips in from outside, but inside it mixes with the heat of the fire and the smell of cooking. Near the entrance, you hear the footsteps of the returning hunters, their long shadows dancing on the stone walls preceding them. They bring back what they hunted, meat divided on their shoulders, feathers dangling from leather belts, and their tools, which still bear the trace of earth and blood, and which they have already begun cleaning. No one speaks loudly. There is a kind of unspoken ritual upon returning, where the hunters are given a moment of silence to catch their breath. After placing the spoils near the fire, their storyteller, usually the eldest or the one who led the hunt, begins to narrate the tale. They sit in a semicircle, and eyes, especially the children's eyes, follow every word. They describe how they tracked the animal through the mud, how they noticed the change in the wind that revealed their scent, and how they had to change course. They talk about the heavy silence before the crucial moment, and the calculated pounce that leaves no room for error. But the tale is not about the kill as much as it is about balance. They mention how the hunt was necessary, and that they only took what they needed. Some stories end by mentioning the missed animal, the one that got away, as if its escape is a blessing for the group on another day. The children sit mesmerized, imagining the scenes as if they were there, while the adults nod their heads, acknowledging the hunter's skill and the leader's experience. In the background, the fire continues its crackling, as if applauding the story in its own way. As soon as the story ends, the cooking phase begins, which is a ritual no less important than the hunt itself. In the center of the cave, above the glowing embers, long wooden skewers are placed, on which pieces of meat are fixed to roast slowly. The smell of fat dripping onto the embers mixes with light smoke, filling the place with a warm aroma that can be felt even by those standing at the entrance. Beside the fire, there is a small hollow lined with smooth stones. This hollow is used as a stone oven, where roots and tubers are placed inside large leaves and then buried under a layer of hot ash and heat-retained stones. There are no spices in the modern sense, but nature itself grants its flavors, the smoke of the wood, the natural oils of the roots, and the scent of herbs sometimes placed with the food inside the leaves. The sounds of cooking are not just crackling, but also the sizzling of fat on the stones and the rustle of leaves being lifted off the cooked roots. All these sounds form a rhythmic background for short conversations among the group members. As time passes, the meat changes color from dark red to deep brown, and the roots soften under the fingers of those who check them. That's when everyone knows that dinner is ready, and the moment of gathering around the food is near. After everyone takes their share of dinner, the work begins on the remaining meat. In this world, nothing goes to waste. Large pieces are cut into thin slices and hung on wooden skewers above or beside the fire, where the smoke rises to preserve them from spoilage. This method, which may last for days, makes the meat edible for weeks, perhaps months. Large bones are carefully broken to extract the marrow, which is a nutrient-rich food and is also used in some medical salves. Tendons are carefully pulled out as they are a strong and durable material for making ropes or securing arrowheads. Even the hide is not left behind. It is tanned using a mixture of ash and certain plants to become flexible and used for making clothes or coverings. Internal organs that are not consumed immediately are cooked quickly or preserved in special ways. Some are mixed with herbs to make nourishing meals for children or the sick. All these processes are done with clear expertise, as everyone knows what needs to be done, as if they are performing a play memorized by heart. Even feathers or fur have a use, feathers for decorating tools or as fletching to balance an arrow's flight, and fur as extra insulation against the winter cold. Working to utilize every part of the animal is not just a matter of survival, but also respect, for the animal that lost its life becomes a part of the group, warming it, feeding it, and granting it tools that protect it, as if its spirit continues to serve them even after its passing. With dinner complete and the remaining resources tidied, the calmer phase of the evening begins, storytelling. Everyone sits in a wide circle around the fire, distributing themselves so that they receive its heat evenly. The flame dances on the walls, casting moving shadows that make the cave seem bigger and deeper than it is. At this time, tales are not just entertainment, they are a way of preserving knowledge and history. One of the elders begins to narrate an ancient story about the journey of their ancestors, how they crossed distant mountains and overcame storms, and how they found this cave for the first time. His tone is slow, as if every word is carefully chosen to be planted in the listener's memory. The children move closer, their eyes widening with every event and their faces lighting up with the fire's reflection. Some tales carry practical lessons, such as a way to determine the wind's direction or recognize an animal's track, but they are wrapped in a mythical framework that makes them easy to remember. Sometimes, the tales are interspersed with short songs that the group chants together, their rhythm simple and repetitive, harmonizing with the sound of the glowing embers. The rhythm makes even the young ones memorize the words after repeating them a few times. During these moments, everyone feels they are part of something greater than their daily lives. The tales connect the past to the present and make the group a single unit that knows its roots as well as it knows the ways of hunting and gathering. And as time passes, the narrator's voice lowers and the fire begins to quiet, but the warmth of the moment remains, as if the words themselves have become part of the walls. After the stories, some adults turn to working on their tools. In a corner lit by the fire's glow, two men sit on the ground with large and small stones with sharp edges in front of them. One begins to strike a piece of flint against another with precise and repeated blows until a thin edge is formed that can become an arrowhead or a knife blade. Sparks sometimes fly, but they move their hands steadily as if playing a musical instrument they know well. Near them, a woman sits with a bundle of tendons extracted from animals. She wets them with water, then begins to twist them tightly until they turn into a strong rope that can be used for hunting or tying coverings. The movement is repetitive, its rhythm harmonizing with the crackling of the embers in the fire. Children come closer to see up close, some try to imitate the movements on small pieces of stone, and others pick up sticks and plant fibers to try weaving them. The adults don't mind but encourage them, even if they sometimes spoil the materials, for here learning is not a classroom, but a live participation amidst daily life. One of the boys succeeds in shaping a sharp tip for a small stone and raises it proudly. The older man smiles, takes it, turns it over in his hands, then returns it to him, saying, "It will be better tomorrow." It is a way to instill patience, because making a good tool takes longer than the enthusiasm of one day. These moments are not just about tool production, but also establish a culture of craftsmanship and self-reliance, and the realization that everything the group owns has passed through its hands and was made from resources it collected itself. In the deepest wall of the cave, away from the direct glow of the fire, there is a dimly lit space that everyone knows. There, beneath a layer of darkness left by the smoke of decades of fires, appear lines and shapes, some clear and some barely distinguishable. These are the cave paintings, an unwritten record preserved in the rock. You approach slowly, your eyes needing a moment to adjust to the faint light. You see first a large image of an elk, its antlers spreading in curved lines, as if the artist wanted to immortalize the feeling of expanse and power. Next to it are hands printed in red and yellow, the marks of human fingers from a long time ago. Beside you stands Isla, holding a small stone bowl, inside which is a mixture of clay, burned herbs, and powdered minerals. She tells you that this mixture is what makes the pigments. The red color comes from iron oxides they collect from the riverbanks, and the yellow from special earth brought from a distant place. The black comes from finely ground charcoal mixed with animal fats. You see how she uses a primitive brush made of plant fibers to apply the color to the wall. Her movements are not random, they are precise and deliberate, as if she is redrawing what her eyes saw in the forest or on the plain. Sometimes, she blows the color through a small hollow tube to leave a soft, shadow-like effect. But the paintings are not the only thing that distinguishes this corner of the cave. When you raise your head and clap your hand or strike the wall with a stone, you hear a different echo. The place is designed, or perhaps formed, to return the sound in a unique way. The echo reverberates as if it is coming from the depths of the earth, magnifying the impact of the sounds and making them deeper. The leader explains that this area is sometimes used for rituals, where they gather to tell the stories of the ancestors or perform communal songs. The sounds that echo here carry a greater sense of presence, as if the walls themselves are participating in the singing. In one of the corners, you see a large stone bowl containing small balls of dry pigment. These are moistened with water or fats when needed and preserved as a treasure, because some of their components are rare and require days of travel to collect. As you leave this corner, you realize that what you see on the walls is not just art or decoration, it is a communication between two times, the time of the one who drew these pictures and your time. Every line and color is a lasting message that says they were here, thinking, feeling, and leaving a trace, just as we do now. As night deepens, the cave begins to transform into a stage for events that do not happen in daylight. The embers in the heart of the fire glow like small watching eyes, and the flame dances slowly, sending long shadows climbing the walls and disappearing into the stone cavities. In one corner, a small circle of smooth stones is set up, not for fire this time, but for placing specific objects, polished bones, stones of unusual colors, and long, brightly colored feathers. These tools are not for decoration, but part of rituals the group has preserved for generations. The leader stands in the middle of the circle, raising his hands, and the group begins to emit low sounds, not comprehensible words but rhythmic chants. The echo in the cave doubles these sounds, making them deeper and more mysterious, until you feel they are coming from the very belly of the earth. The children sit beside their mothers, watching in silence. Some try to mimic the tune and others simply listen. The rituals are not fully understood by them yet, but the atmosphere instills a feeling of belonging to something greater than their daily lives. One of the women brings out a stone bowl containing powdered herb leaves mixed with fat, and she draws lines on the faces of the participants. The scent is strong, a mixture of earth, ash, and herbs, as if awakening the senses. The lines are not just decoration, each pattern has a meaning, some related to the hunt, some to protection, and others to the celebration of the seasons. As the sounds continue, the rhythm begins to change. Some of the men strike stones against each other, producing a short, metallic tone that repeats with the communal breathing sound. This harmony creates a feeling that time has slowed down or perhaps stopped for moments. At the peak of the ritual, one of the objects, perhaps an elk antler or a rare stone, is raised to the level of the fire as if they are offering it to the light to be blessed before it is returned to its special place in the cave. Then, gradually, the sounds fade, and a low hum remains, fading with the glow of the embers. When everything ends, the group returns to their sleeping places quietly, but the cave looks slightly different, as if the walls have stored these sounds and breaths to return them someday to those who will sit here centuries after you. After the rituals subside and the sounds soften, everyone returns to the central fire, where the warm scents begin to spread again. The remains of dinner are reheated, and the roots cooked in the stone oven are retrieved from beneath the hot ash, revealing dark peels that conceal a soft, warm heart. But before anyone touches the food, the sharing process begins, a ritual as daily as it is practical. The leader, with the help of two older women, divides the meat into portions. The children and the sick are given first, then the women who will go gathering in the morning, then the hunters who will leave before sunrise. The process is done in near total silence, as if everyone knows that respecting the order means ensuring survival. No one complains about the size of their share, for everyone knows that resources are not individual property, but belong to the entire group. Some pieces are wrapped in large leaves and kept in the cool cavities of the walls to be provisions for the next day or for longer journeys. The medicinal herbs collected by Dini are carefully sorted, some placed in small plant bags and some tied in bundles to be hung from the ceiling, where the smoke reaches them to protect them from rot. Even the honey collected during the day is carefully divided into small stone pots. Each family has a share, but a part of it is saved for the harsh winter nights when food is scarce and energy is most needed. The children watch the process with interest, as if memorizing this unwritten system that enables the group to continue despite the harshness of the environment. And after everything is finished, everyone begins to eat slowly, not just as someone filling their stomach, but as someone enjoying what the last day granted them of purpose. Around the fire, some exchange a few words, and others simply look at the flame, thinking about tomorrow and the path that awaits them. When the shadows begin to lengthen inside the cave and the daylight fades to a faint thread at the entrance, the group slowly moves toward a ritual known to all, preparing the sleeping place. No one speaks loudly, voices here automatically turn into whispers, as if the cave itself asks everyone to lighten the noise. Isla approaches the central fire, the red embers glow quietly as if they are small beating hearts. She uses a long stick to move the wood, and short sparks fly up before disappearing into the air. Then begins the process of covering the embers with a layer of fine ash. This is not the end of the fire's giving, but a way to preserve its heat at its core until the morning, so that it can be easily revived with the first touch of new wood. At the same time, others are busy preparing the sleeping places. Hides are laid out on the rocky floor after being shaken to remove any dust or insects. Some add a layer of dry grass under the hides to insulate the cold, and some place fur covers over them. Mothers are careful to place the children between themselves and the inner wall, away from the cold draft that seeps in from the entrance. The hunters naturally choose spots close to the entrance, not because they prefer the cold, but because they take turns on the nightly watch. Their tools, spears, stone knives, and small bags containing flint stones, are always placed within easy reach in case of an emergency. In the storage corners, empty baskets are returned to their places, and bundles of medicinal herbs are hung on the walls in spots reached by the light smoke to protect them from decay. Hunting tools are wiped with pieces of cloth made from plant fibers, and it is ensured that any stone blade damaged during the day is mended or replaced before sleep. As the moment of stillness approaches, the sounds of the day begin to vanish: no children's laughter, no clanging of stones, no rustle of herbs being cut. Only the faint sound of the fire remains, the scattered whispers, and the rustle of covers being pulled up. Everyone prepares to slowly leave wakefulness and slide into the embrace of the night that folds the cave within its stony wings. The sky above offers small breaks between the clouds, revealing distant stars. The two guards know some of their locations well and use them to estimate the passage of time. The moon, if present, casts a faint light upon the cave mouth, just enough to see the broad outlines of nearby trees. Sometimes they talk in whispers about the day's events, the elk that appeared near the forest edge or the path they took to collect honey. These brief conversations are not to waste time, but to dispel the weight of the silence and keep their senses alert. Every now and then, one turns inward to check that the flame is still alive and the sleeper's rest is peaceful. This balance between looking outward and ensuring inner calm is what makes the watch a dual act: protection from the unknown and guardianship of serenity. In the left corner of the cave, where the fire's glow softens and only a faint reflection reaches, Liara lies beside her young daughter. The girl is still awake, gazing at the cave ceiling as if following the shadows moving slowly. She whispers to her mother, "Will tomorrow be like today?" Liara smiles and answers in a low voice, "No day is like the other, but it will bring us enough." In the opposite side, Dini exchanges words with one of the young men who accompanied him gathering plants. He describes how to distinguish the correct medicinal herb from its poisonous twin, and recounts a season years ago when a rare plant saved the life of a sick child. The young man listens intently, as if committing every word to memory. Near the entrance, one of the returning hunters whispers to his companion, describing a brief scene he saw outside, a small hedgehog crossing the path between the rocks, pausing every so often to sniff the air. Nothing in this story has a direct practical impact, but it leaves a gentle smile on the listener's face. These brief conversations in the dark are like the threads that weave the group's fabric. No one raises their voice, and no one tells a long tale, but every word builds a small bridge from one heart to another. Even the children who don't understand all the meanings feel the warmth of these bonds, and they drift off to sleep listening to the familiar timbre of voices. As minutes pass, the words diminish until they vanish, and the cave returns to its silence, as if every breath has become part of a single harmony that embraces everyone under one roof of stone and warmth. While most of the group slips into deep slumber, one man remains sitting near the central fire. His legs are folded beneath him, and his hands are stretched toward the warmth. He is not on watch, but he is accustomed to staying up a little after the others, as if he has a private conversation with the embers. The fire is now not a high flame, but a red heart beating slowly. Each ember holds a color of its own, grading from bright yellow to deep orange until it reaches the edge of blackness. The man watches it as if reading letters on a silent page. Occasionally, he reaches with a small wooden stick to turn the embers, and a light spark rises, quickly vanishing into the cool air. The smell of burnt wood is still present, but now accompanied by a calmer aroma, as if the fire is breathing in its dream. His eyes don't focus on anything specific, but in his mind are images from the day, the forest elk, the leaves of the plants they gathered, the face of the child who laughed chasing a small fish in the stream. These images move slowly, mingled with memories of older days, until time itself becomes less distinct. He takes a small piece of dried meat from his pouch, raises it to his mouth, and savors it slowly. The taste is salty and rich, and with the fire's warmth, it becomes closer to the taste of safety. And when he feels that the embers have settled beneath their blanket of ash, he pulls the cover over his shoulders and casts a final glance at the remaining glow. For him, the fire is not just a tool for survival, but a silent companion that witnesses every moment of the group's life, its presence extending from one day to the next as if there were no break between them. As midnight arrives, the cave becomes a single mass of stillness and warmth. The hides and furs form contiguous islands of comfort, and each island holds bodies wrapped in silence, moving only with the rhythm of breathing. The sounds here are soft, a long exhale, a short inhale, and in a sudden dream, the gentle turning of someone seeking a more comfortable position. The children are the most deeply asleep, their arms relaxed and their heads resting on their mother's shoulders. One of them smiles in his sleep, perhaps seeing in his dream the image of the stream or the honeycomb he tasted this morning. Beside them, an elder moves his lips with words no one hears, as if whispering an old tale to someone in another world. From time to time, a cold draft of air passes from the entrance, touching the faces of the sleepers, and one of them moves to pull the cover closer around their body. The faint smoke that seeps from the embers buried beneath the ash fills the air with a constant smell, a mixture of wood, hides, and dry plants, a scent so familiar that it is almost a part of the dream itself. And outside, the night provides its own music, the distant hoot of an owl, the rustle of leaves moving in rhythm with the wind, and the sound of an animal's steps crossing the rocks before disappearing into the darkness. These sounds do not trouble the sleepers. Instead, they weave into their dreams, as if the forest itself is telling them stories. In the depths of this calm, the cave seems like a beating heart, every beat a breath of the group, and every breath an unspoken promise that the day will come and they will wake up whole. The cave is immersed in the warmth of sleep, the forest outside stretches beneath a blanket of thick darkness. The moon, a pale white semicircle, slips between scattered clouds, painting patches of faint light on the damp ground. The leaves of the tall trees move slowly as if breathing with the rhythm of the wind. On the narrow paths used by animals, small feet leave new tracks over the layer of soft mud. A field mouse emerges from its burrow to quickly pass through the grass, stopping for seconds to sniff the air, then vanishing. A little farther, a hedgehog wanders around a tree trunk searching for insects stuck under the bark. The nocturnal sounds here are clearer than in the day. The croaking of frogs rises from the distant swamp, mixed with the chirping of insects that never stop playing. Sometimes this rhythm is broken by the sound of an owl's wings as it descends silently upon its prey, or a short howl from afar echoed by the surrounding hills. From the cave entrance, the guard can see the edges of the plain fading into the light fog. There, at the meeting point of darkness and faint light, larger shadows move, perhaps deer silently traversing or wolves passing quickly. Nature here is neither aggressive nor friendly, but proceeds with its own affairs, indifferent to the humans sleeping under the roof of stone. Even the rocks themselves, under the moonlight, take on a different color, colder and closer to blue. The small cracks hidden by the sun during the day are clearly visible now, as if the night reveals the earth's secrets. If one of the sleepers were to step out at this moment, they might feel that time has stopped, and the world is moving slower, governed by an unseen rhythm known only to those who have lived long in the heart of nature. Before the first sun rays touch the cave entrance, the gray light begins to creep inside, soft as a hesitant visitor. Outside, the sounds of night slowly recede and are replaced by the whisper of morning, the fluttering of a bird waking among the branches, the rustle of leaves touched by the dawn breeze, and the sound of a distant stream regaining its clarity as the wind stills. Inside, the first to wake moves quietly so as not to rouse the rest. The night guard places a small wick near the buried embers and gently blows on it. A thin smoke rises, and then the heat begins to spread anew. The scent of burnt wood now mixes with the smell of the cold air coming from outside, invigorating the senses. Isla emerges from her corner, covers her shoulders with the fur wrap, and sits near the fire, placing small pieces of wood on the embers so the flame slowly catches. Beside her, one of the hunters drinks cold water he kept in a stone bowl all night. He washes his face and wipes the water drops from his thick beard. The children slowly open their eyes to a light different from the firelight. They raise their heads to confirm that the day has truly begun. Some crawl toward the fire to feel the warmth, and others head toward the entrance to glimpse the forest while it changes its colors with every passing minute. Outside the cave, the sky graduates from gray to light blue with streaks of pink announcing the sun's arrival. And as you watch this scene, you realize that dawn is not just a new beginning for the day, but a repeated promise that the cycle will continue, as it has continued thousands of times before. As the daylight reaches its fullest and the first sun rays enter the heart of the cave, the group begins its day just as generations before them did. The same movements, the same sounds, the same smells. But as you observe, you realize that what is happening before you is not just mechanical repetition, but the continuation of a life that spans centuries, a life unbroken despite the change of faces and seasons. You see the hunters preparing to leave exactly as they did yesterday and as they will do tomorrow. You see the gatherers filling their baskets with gathering tools, just as their mothers and grandmothers did. The children, despite their youth, know their roles in this fabric. They run among the adults, imitating their movements and thereby planting the present in the soil of the future. You think of the temporal distance that separates you from them, but in truth, it does not seem as far as you imagine. Yes, you live in a different world with tall cities and walls of glass and steel, but the same hunger, the same warmth, the same fear, and the same desire for protection, none of these have changed. These people surround the fire just as your family surrounds a hearth, they sleep close together just as we do when we seek security, and they exchange tales just as we do on our evenings. The difference is that their walls are of stone and yours are of concrete, but what takes place inside is the same, humans searching for meaning, for connection, for continuation. And as your imagination moves away from the cave, you realize that this moment is not just a scene from the past, but a mirror reflecting something in you. Somewhere beneath everything time has built between you and them, you are one of them. The buildings you inhabit may differ and the tools you use may be more complex, but the heart of the story is one, beating since man first began to dream around a fire and look toward tomorrow with eyes anticipating the unknown.